Welcome back to another episode of the North Star Takes podcast. I'm Bailey Policki. He's Jacob Liberta, and we're a Minnesota sports podcast. And you can give us a follow on Twitter and Instagram. And please be sure to like this video and also subscribe to our channel for more Minnesota sports conversations. And today is a Victory Monday. We're going to be talking about the Minnesota Vikings as they defeated the Green Bay Packers 23-7, and what was probably one of the most comfortable victories over the Packers we've had in quite some time. I think I would probably go all the way back to 2017 when we shut them out at Lambeau Field. I think Brett Hundley was the quarterback, if I'm not mistaken, that game. So,
Yep.
it's been a long time since we've comfortably beat the Packers, but Aaron Rodgers was playing this game, albeit he didn't have his, longtime sidekick Devontae Adams. Bunch of rookie receivers, which obviously that kind of stuck out throughout the game as there were some mistakes made. But let's just jump right into it, Liberta. What stood out to you the most in a game that the Vikings controlled from start to finish?
Yeah, I think it goes with what you said here off the top. It just felt comfortable. Like we felt like we were in control wire to wire. And it kind of rings true with a thing I saw on Twitter yesterday. It's been forever since Rodgers, maybe ever, that he had a loss more than one score within this division. So that just kind of goes without saying then that when you're winning by one score against Packers, you feel like they're never out of it then. So then kind of just on the edge of your seat till the end of the game, till it's finally finished. So I think, yeah, it's just a dominating performance coming right out of the gates like this is awesome with a new head coach and his debut. Biggest game of the year, really, playing your
Yeah.
biggest rival at home. I think that's one you really want to have, and we got it, especially in a year where we're not exactly the division favorites, like we're playing the division favorites. So that's a big win to pick up because, those division games count a whole lot more. So when it comes down to the end and tiebreakers and things like that, if you're playing for something at the end of the season. So I think that's probably the biggest thing or biggest big picture thing I can take away from here. But there's certainly a lot of other things to unpack. I'd say probably the offense that everybody was looking forward to seeing, just having the new play caller, the guy you feel good about just because he's come from a great system out in LA compared to what we had last year with Clint Kubiak, very inexperienced and in over his head. So I think that was awesome to see his creativity and his ability to just get Justin Jefferson ridiculously open, like combining really a guru, a really smart offensive mind with a just super talented wide receiver. It's just amazing for this team, for this fan base. So that was a lot of fun, obviously. And then ironically having our defense play our best game in years when in the first game with an offensive head coach that we've had since Childress, actually. So that's kind of incredible. But yeah, I don't know what kind of jumped off the page first to you, Bailey.
First of all, just the excitement on the sidelines between O'Connell, the players when they came off the field, the excitement he was showing them.
True.
Kirk Cousins was way more, active in terms of talking to teammates than I've ever seen him before.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was encouraging. It really seems like he's kind of empowered as a leader now on this team. And hopefully that continues throughout the rest of the regular season because I think that can only bring good things for this football team. Another thing that stood out, Justin Jefferson is just an absolute freaking stud. We already knew this, but I think now like you mentioned, with a good offensive play caller, a guy that has a good system and knows what he's doing, and he also understands the importance of getting Justin Jefferson the football, basically, whenever you can.
Mm-hmm.
That only maximizes Jefferson's opportunities. And now we might start seeing Justin Jefferson get the Cooper Cup type volume. And if you pair that with that extreme athleticism he has, the fantastic hands, this guy can absolutely be the best wide receiver in football if he's not already, just given the volume. So, obviously he was, very exciting to watch. It was a little strange not seeing much of Thielen yesterday, and there wasn't much from the tight ends or KJ Osborne, but there really wasn't any need for it when Justin Jefferson's just dominating every matchup. It was kind of nice to also see the pass set up the run. It was, it wasn't like Dalvin Cook's our focal point and we're going to go from there. It was actually complete opposite. It was Justin Jefferson's going to set up Dalvin Cook. And, Cook only ran for 90 yards. He only had 20 carries. But at the same time, as the game wore on, he started having more and more space on these runs. It started to open up a little bit more for him. He didn't break any big runs, but still looked like same old Dalvin Cook, quick and spry. And Madison actually looked pretty decent too in a backup role, getting a handful of carries. So, and then, yeah, like you mentioned, the defense was fantastic. You know how ironic it is that the defense plays the best game it's played in a long time. The second Mike Zimmer's out the door. So you got the two edge rushers with Smith and Hunter. Those guys are absolute animals. And then even the guy like DJ Wanham picking up a sack. Jordan Hicks led the team in tackles. I thought Cam Dancer played a fantastic game yesterday. He got injured at one point. I think he cramped up a little bit.
Mhm.
But, outside of that, I thought he played fantastic. Pat P got burned early by Christian Watson, but he obviously dropped the deep ball. And I thought Harrison Smith and Cam Bynum were fantastic at safety. So, I mean, honestly, there's not a whole lot to nitpick about this game other than maybe, in the third quarter, the offense kind of went silent and we didn't move the ball that well. And it looked like for maybe a second, Green Bay would try to mount a comeback, but Green Bay just lacked the firepower. So, I mean, it's weird. I mean, it's still weird to me that it's Kevin O'Connell, it's not Mike Zimmer, because it's all the same players, but it's just a new guy running the show. And he comes in and we beat the Packers handily, which we haven't done in a long time. So it's fascinating how that works, and I'm really intrigued to see where this team goes from here.
Yeah, I know, right? It just felt so much different. I mean, yesterday, even like leading into the game and just waking up yesterday, even to me, thinking about this Vikings season ahead and this new era that was about to begin, and it just felt different. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
These last couple openers just kind of feel like, yes, it's NFL season. Like I can get a certain amount excited for that every year, no matter the circumstances. But like this just felt to taken to another level because it's like there's a ceiling here that we don't really know what it is. Like it could be super high, where like you felt like we kind of capped with Zimmer at a point where it's like, man, it's really hard to envision this team going anywhere substantial. Where now it feels like there's the opportunity out there, there's the reality somewhere where you feel like we can really make some noise in this league and maybe put together, first of all, make the playoffs and put together a substantial playoff run. So and it just felt that way too when you watch the game. I mean, even the first drive, that's little things like body language. And for instance, like we get that touchdown on that big 4th-and-1 conversion
Mm-hmm.
to Jefferson, like that was amazing. And then they panned O'Connell, he's just fired up, doing a nice fist
Yes.
pump, like he was jacked. And like I think he's got the perfect personality, perfect like aura about him for a head
Mm-hmm.
coach that you just love to see from a guy who's an innovator. He seems like he's going to empower his players. Like he's definitely a guy that's going to put his players in the best positions possible. But then he's also going to he knows how to walk a fine line, I guess is what I'm trying to say,
Mm-hmm.
between empowering the guys and getting the most out of them and just being excited when it calls for it and being able to get serious and make tough calls when it comes down to it too. But I'm really excited with where this is going. Obviously, riding the high of a nice week 1 win against the Packers at home, like that's always a big moment in the season, no matter the kind of year we're having or not. So
Yeah.
um, that's pretty awesome. And then considering too, kind of looking at more for the really the offensive output that he put on the field and he coached these guys into, I guess it's like it's kind of amazing to me these last couple of years. I know Zim was a big proponent around the ball, as everybody knows, and especially having Dalvin the bell cow just taking a lot of the carries.
Right.
And it felt like I didn't even think he had 20 touches yesterday. So it felt like a quiet 20 touches, and he had a quiet like 100 plus all purpose yards. So
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of weird. And then Thielen, for as favorite of a target as he's been for Kirk ever since he got here, really like he was pretty quiet too yesterday. But like you said, it didn't really need it. It didn't really matter because
Mm-hmm.
it just came down to Jefferson being able to torch their defense and put us up right away. And then it was all uphill from there, I guess, where the put the Packers on their heels and you can do whatever you want, really. So I think that played a big part in it. But obviously now I just gotta keep stacking wins. I think it'd be another big one to get in Philly next week. I think that's another team that could contend in this NFC. So if you get that one
Yeah.
too, man, I I my I'd be drunk on the purple Kool-Aid. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I hear you there, man. That's what I was going to bring up too. I know it's only week 1, but we can get into a little bit of the overreaction talk here. I mean,
Mhm.
if they go into Philly and beat Philly, I mean, Philly had a great offensive output against Detroit, but it is Detroit. They've always had a terrible defense. Um, but they also gave up 35 points to Detroit and barely, squeaked out a win. So it's like, I mean, Philly is gettable. I think it is a road game. It's going to be tough. It's Monday Night Football. But if you come
Mhm.
out of there with a win, I mean, look around at the rest of the NFC. Dak is out for 6 to 8 weeks. The Cowboys are done already. The
Yep.
rest of the NFC East is a joke.
Yeah.
Um, and then you got out west. The Rams don't look as good. Granted, it was one game against the best team in football, but the Rams didn't look very good. The Cardinals got smoked by the Chiefs. I mean, that's a team that could potentially, be firing a head coach this year.
Yes.
Um,
Seahawks are dog water.
yeah, Seahawks are terrible. And the 49ers, I mean, until Trey Lance really proves anything, I mean, they
Yeah,
lost to the Chicago Bears.
that
So,
looked bad.
albeit horrible weather game. But
Yes.
then you move to the north, you got the Packers, who are, I think they'll still be pretty good, but I mean, they're definitely beatable. And we saw that week 1. I mean, Rodgers just doesn't have anyone to throw the ball to. So if you can kind of keep the running backs in check, I think you're going to be okay against the Packers. Bears are not a good team, even though they beat San Fran. Lions, I think, will be feisty and could definitely provide a challenge to the Vikings, but in terms of being a playoff team and a contender, they're definitely not up there.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the NFC South, you got Tampa
Bucks.
Bay, who, I mean, they moved the ball pretty well against Dallas, but they didn't score any touchdowns until basically the very end of the game. And then let's see, you got New Orleans, who they squeaked out a win against Atlanta, who's terrible.
And Atlanta blew that lead to let them win that game.
And everyone's hyping up New Orleans because they got the good defense and Michael Thomas is back, but it's like, okay, it's still Jameis Winston. You know, he's a 500 at best quarterback. He's going to throw a lot of picks. You know, he will. And then obviously Carolina with Baker, and they lost to the Browns. They didn't look very good. And then Atlanta's not a good team. So it's like you look around the NFC, and there's not a team I'm truly scared of. Like Philly, honestly, might be one of the more scarier teams just based on Jalen Hurts and his freak athletic ability. I think that defense can come after you, especially the way like the interior of our offensive line is. That can be a concern. So, I mean, Philly's kind of a scary team. I think the Rams are still somewhat scary. And probably the Bucks too, just because of Tom Brady. But outside of those teams, like I'm not super scared of anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm in the same boat there. And yeah, I kind of start with Philly next week. I think what scares me about them is their ability to run the ball. And I'm still a little bit concerned about our run defense. It's been bad the last couple of years. And then this first week wasn't exactly great either because I think it was like 6.2 yards per carry for the Packers. And like they were not obviously able to run the ball that much. So like the sample size is pretty small because they're playing from behind most of the game, but still like that's not good. So you'll have to see better there. And they obviously Philly runs the ball almost more than anybody else. They had 4 different guys score a rushing touchdown against the Lions. And then considering their defense too, you brought up they have a strong interior, that defensive line that could maybe eat up our interior of the offensive line. So that scares me. But and then I'll also point at Philly is a different animal too compared to a lot of other places. So that's something to consider. But on the bright side, I would say here is that the Vikings played one of the better teams in the NFC yesterday, and they won pretty handily, albeit a week 1 game. Things can get a little weird, but still, like, it was wire to wire, like we said at the top of this. And you consider that the Packers secondary, I think it's one of the best ones in football, really, like top to bottom, as far as all their starters go, from their safeties, corners. They got Alexander, who's one of the best. Obviously, he didn't shadow Jefferson yesterday, which has been really called into question today, looking back on that game. But still, like that, they have other talented guys too. But yeah, I mean, if he can do it against them, like who's he not going to do? Who's he not going to do it against? And especially if we're playing all these teams at home, like right now, I know it's overreaction season, week 1, this and that, but like, who do you not like us against at home? I mean, at least in the NFC. AFC, that's a different story. AFC, oh my gosh, there's so many good teams. But the NFC, who do you not like us against?
Exactly, because a couple of the more difficult home games we're looking like maybe Dallas, maybe Green Bay, maybe New England. We already beat Green Bay. Dallas, I mean, Dak might be back by that point, but that team's going to be down in the dumps, potentially firing Mike McCarthy. The Patriots look horrible, and they got Matt Patricia calling their offense. Like, good luck.
Joe Judge in the mix, too. Ooh.
Oh, my goodness. That team's a disaster. So you're right. I mean, outside of that, the home games are looking really nice. I mean, they could potentially win all but one or 2 home games here for sure.
Yes, absolutely. So that's what I'm curious about too. Again, another good test week 2 in Philly, playing on the road. See what this team looks like in a more hostile environment, probably as hostile as it gets, at least in the NFC or if not the NFL. So I think that'll be a nice litmus test for us.
I know Kirk did win on Monday Night Football. It was either last year or 2 years ago.
It's Chicago and a sloppy game.
Yeah, that's right. It was last year. But maybe O'Connell can help kind of break this Monday Night Football primetime kind of curse that Kirk's got too. And if Kirk's playing more comfortable, I mean, who knows? Sky might be the limit for him. So
true. This definitely looked like a different Kirk as far as just being relaxed and, like you said, feeling empowered. I mean, he gets in the locker room after the game, gives game balls to Kwesi and KOC based off of approval from speaking with ownership after the game. So like that feels like a pretty big deal.
Right. Absolutely. Any other final thoughts from you before we take off here?
Yeah, I'm already ready for another game,
Same.
Coming off a big win like this, I'm ready for more, but obviously you just got to take it a game at a time, be patient, because this thing, it's not going to look this pretty every week, but you got to enjoy it when it does happen. That there's really almost nothing to really rip for this team this week. I mean, like a little bit of everything here. So yeah, get excited. I think this this team, I'm feeling a lot more bullish now than I was. Was that a day and a half ago? We'll say 36 hours ago. Yeah,
same. Yeah, we needed to actually see it and have it be proven to us that this team can do it.
exactly.
And the lack of playing in the preseason, I mean, that's gone by the wayside now that they came out week one.
Mhm.
Offense looked pretty much in sync. So yeah, I think it can only get better from here, hopefully. And like you said, it won't be pretty every single week, and they're going to lose some games. But man, if you can go into Philly and start 2-0, and then you got the Lions, Saints in London, which is robbing them of a home game, and then you got the Bears coming back home. I mean, that could be a nice 5-game start to the season. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. But that will do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Like I mentioned earlier, please click the like button on this video and feel free to subscribe to our channel if you want more Minnesota sports conversation. Give us a follow on both Twitter and Instagram, and let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. What stuck out to you the most throughout week one's win over the Packers? What are you most looking forward to as the season goes on here? And just maybe your impressions on Kevin O'Connell getting his first victory in the NFL. So until next time, thanks for watching.